Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Digital Supply Chain Podcast. My name is Tom Raftery, and with me on the show today, I have my special guest, Phillip. Phillip, welcome to the podcast. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Thanks, Tom. Thanks for having me. Yeah, absolutely. Founder and CEO of Arka. We have an API that connects to any warehouse management system to auto replenish packaging for warehouses, and we provide custom branded packaging for direct to consumer merchants.
Okay, well, first off, nice to have someone with a hat on the podcast. So thank you for that.
So I got the memo. Yep, of course.
Great. Tell me a little bit more about Arka, Phillip, because that was a very high level. What was the genesis of Arka? Why did you decide to wake up one morning and say, oh, I must start Arka?
Sure. So initially, I went to school for industrial engineering, and my main focus was just like facility redesign, warehouse management, dealing with products that eventually get shipped. When it came to packaging, it always ended up being a bottleneck. So I figured there could be an easier way of getting packaging, especially for direct to consumer merchants that are just starting out. They want to scale their business. There's so many times you graduate in the life cycle of being an e-com business from a certain provider that you really want someone that can grow with you. And that's exactly what Arka can do. We can grow with businesses, whether you just started out or you're doing over 10 million a year, we'll be able to help you out. Then, like what we discovered through helping more merchants was there was a deeper issue on the warehouse level. And that's where we created the API to connect to any warehouse management system. Tracking and purchasing of packaging is fairly neglected on the warehouse level. So what we've been able to do is connect to the WMS, which is essentially the brain of the warehouse, and create an auto replenishment function, which sounds fairly straightforward and sounds like something that warehouses should already have, but they don't. When it comes to the governance and tracking of packaging, it's fairly low visibility. So essentially what a warehouse manager can do is get set up with our platform. And when they run low on boxes, they can set a minimum threshold of, let's say, 500 boxes. When you have only 500 of this box left, we'll send you more. We'll update your warehouse management system, and you will get that warehouse receiving order or ship notice or ASN that more boxes are en route. And it's become an absolute game changer for those warehouses, and as a result for those merchants, and as a result consumers. Our products won't be late, at least for that reason, any longer.
Okay. Is that a big bottleneck for warehouses generally, running out of boxes?
It is, especially during peak season, which is upon us. So what typically happens is the process of tracking packaging today in most warehouses predates the fax machine. It's someone walking the warehouse floor with a clipboard, counting how many boxes they have. Maybe it ends up on an Excel sheet somewhere. Then they will flip open the Uline catalog, pick up the phone, and order more boxes. Like that's the basic process today. Whereas with us, we abstract away that manual process by just having it be automated. It'll just come in as like a notification to whoever's managing the procurement of packaging of that warehouse to say, okay, you're low on this, 500 more en route. Do you wish to proceed? Yes. Awesome. Ship notice created. 3 pallets of a 10 by 8 by 4 are en route. Warehouse can get ready for it. They don't have to worry about running out. They don't need to purchase or overnight packaging at a premium, which happens all the time. Like it's a fire drill that happens on the warehouse level. And it's something that you can feel insured. Like we're essentially providing that insurance for a warehouse, because if that happens, your merchant that you're servicing is obviously going to be furious, because that means late orders, which means their customers are going to be furious. That merchant very well might churn from your warehouse. So if you're a 3PL and you want to make sure you keep your merchants happy, you got to keep their customers happy. And our solution helps provide that.
Okay. And what about right sizing of packaging? Because, that's often an issue. I receive parcels and it's maybe a matchbox size component that I've ordered, and it's come in a box, that could hold a pair of shoes or similar.
Totally.
Is that something that you're also helping warehouses with?
Absolutely. So let's double click on that for a second. I think anyone listening right now has received a product in the mail that was in a package that was far too big. As a result, that product was likely more expensive than it should have been, because the warehouse albeit they pass on that charge, but it makes the warehouse come off as more expensive because the package is more expensive than it needed to be. It was too big. The shipping is going to be more expensive than it needed to be. There's more volume that's being sent out and potentially more weight. That means there's less room on their pallets, which means there's less room on the back of the trucks. Like, it lowers efficiency across the board, has negative rippling effects throughout the rest of the supply chain. The carbon footprint goes up for that location. The customer experience goes down for whoever receives that package, like yourself that you're describing. And it's happened to me all the time. So to answer your question directly, first of all, yes, we do have a box algo that'll help with the box assortment that you'll have. So we have a box assortment optimization solution for warehouses. And that's just a fancy way of saying if they're selling these products in a mixture of different size products, you want to make sure that the size packages line up. And you want to make sure that it lines up anytime a new SKU, meaning like a new product that's being sold, enters the system or exits the system. How often do you think a warehouse is actually auditing what came in, and as a result, what should we change with our packaging suite? It's like once or twice a year. With our system, we're actually checking that nightly, right? So the next morning they'll be able to see new suggestions. And that's not to say it needs to be some crazy scramble to order this box now, move on and order that box the following week. That's not all what we're saying. However, you will have the information so that you can make the informed decision if you choose to, every day if you wanted to. But point being is, the reason why the product does arrive in a package that's too big can be one of two reasons, is what we've discovered. And we're experts on this. So one is they didn't have the right suite to begin with. Like, they never accounted for the fact that this SKU has entered the system. So they're still sending it in the package that ships this, right? And that's actually like a conservative comparison. Sometimes it'll be in something way larger than this because they've already recognized the package that this is optimal for, and it'll just share it with this guy, right? Because that's what they're going to do. So one, have the right assortment. Two, make sure you're getting your packaging on time. They might have had the right package assortment that included this, but they ran out. And because they ran out, they're going to have to ship it not in something smaller that's physically impossible. It's going to go in something bigger. And that package that's something bigger, you'd be lucky if this is next in line in terms of sizing. As a result, that's what they're going to use because the order's got to go. Like, they're not just going to sit on it. Sure. If they have something to ship it in, that's priority number one. Get this out the door. Customers paid for it. The merchant expects it out the door. You're going to send it out the door, even if it comes in something that ends up being ridiculous. And as a result is not exactly in the world of social commerce. It's not something they're going to share online unless it's a negative review, meaning they're going to say, I love this thing. I'm so glad this came in the mail, but look at this. It came in a massive box. This is ridiculous. I don't like waste. I don't like what this company's doing. I don't stand for it. I don't recommend them, right? Like, that's what they're going to say. They're not going to say, wonderful, I got this product. It came in something that was ballooned 10 times the size of it. No. If you want them to share your product and have the concept of what you did as a company with the efficiency of sending in the right package and also being a great product, those two things need to be reconciled with the right size package. Otherwise, it's going to turn into a bad review. Yeah. And that's something we'd like to avoid.
Yeah. It's interesting because in the recent Apple developer conference where they announced the iPhone 15, one of the points that they made was that they had shrunk the size of the packaging of the phones, and as a consequence, they could fit more phones per container, and therefore they could get, it required less shipping to move the same amount of phones from where they were manufactured to end customer. So they actually made a point about the fact that more efficiently sized packaging helps reduce the footprint. So it's to your point. I think it was Lisa Jackson mentioned that she's the head of sustainability for Apple, but it makes your point very nicely.
I'm actually going to save that talking point. That's freaking brilliant. And it's something that is a universal problem and a universal opportunity for businesses. Don't think that just because you're a small company, you don't need to pay attention to these things. If anything, you definitely should. How are you going to scale if you're paying extra money where you don't have to? So helping eliminate this waste is going to start trending good habits of building a company that'll have positive rippling effects throughout the rest of your supply chain. This does not just apply to Apple. Sure, Apple is the one that's going to be saving hundreds of millions of dollars as a result. But why wouldn't you save hundreds of dollars if you could do it? Especially when the solution is far less expensive than that. It's just a matter of best practices, and that's what we'll be able to share with you, the merchant, or you, the 3PL, since we're the experts on this. So I'm glad you brought up that.
Yeah.
Apple definitely leads the way on that.
And the packaging that I get from you for my warehouse, is that packaging that you have created yourself, or are you sourcing it from someone else?
So Arka does not own, produce, or store any packaging. Like we have a network of suppliers that we leverage to make sure that you get the right packaging at the right time that has proper proximity to your location. Most of all our packaging that we source is in North America. Arka has a FSC certified, which is Forestry Service certification for a chain of custody best practices around materials, the sourcing materials to the production of packaging. This is something that we get audited for every year, and we're big evangelists of this. So you make sure that you're getting eco-friendly packaging. It's something that we take super seriously. So our whole thing is we'll get the right provider for you. We will get this shipped to your warehouse or your living room if that's where you're fulfilling your products, so that you can get the best solution, right? So we get discounts as a result of this, and we pass those savings on to our customers because we essentially act as like a wholesale distributor where we're sending a bunch of orders from merchant A, B, C, and D to specific locations that then aggregate these orders together and then give us a discount that we pass on to customers so that you can get a better price than if you were to go direct. And, myself being an industrial engineer, having structural engineers around packaging on our team and experts on the manufacturing, printing, and distribution of packaging on our team, we are essentially your COO when it comes to procurement, packaging, and shipping of any sort of like supply chain related materials that you would need, so that you don't need to deal with. Because it's such an old school industry. Like our jobs aren't easy. And sometimes it's really not fun. Like dealing with these old school manufacturers. There's a lot of negotiation that needs to go into place. There's a lot of time management. We've queued up specific manufacturing dates for Arka on the dates that you, the merchant, or you, the 3PL, needs your packaging. So we already have that table reserved for you because it's reserved for Arka. Okay.
I'm just wondering as well, in terms of odd shapes, is that an issue? Or, if I have something that's dodecahedron or irregularly shaped, or, how is that taken into account? Or do all of your customers have everything square and rectangular?
No, definitely not. Everything, at least in shipping, is ultimately seen as like cubic dimension that then gets placed inside of a package of some sort, unless it's apparel, which is like a Mobius shape that goes inside of a bag, most likely to get shipped out the door, especially if it's not fragile. So putting that aside for a second, if you do have hard materials, we actually have corrugated inserts. So they're essentially cavities that you can place whatever shape your product is inside of that corrugated tray, which you can brand, place inside of the box, close it up, and it gets sent as a square, or more accurately, a variation of a cube that gets sent out the door. So regardless of what shape you have, that's something we can help with. We actually have an inserts page on our website where you can put in the cubic dimensions of that product. And then we will create in real time the optimal dimension of the tray and the box that you need to ship out. You can brand it, customize it, have it sent wherever you need. We actually even do, just because this can be a sensitive topic for some folks, we actually even provide samples to make sure that it does have perfect fit, so that you don't just, order, 500 or 5,000 or 50,000 boxes out the gate because you think this will have best fit. Just get a sample. Our sampling process, to be completely honest, is one of the best things that we can offer, because it's $20 for a sample. You get a refund when you place a full order. So it's free samples. And the only reason why it's $20 is to keep out the riffraff. It's not like we make money on a $20 sample. Like it's like, we have structural engineers that are anywhere from like $90 to $120 an hour, making sure that it's like best fit. But our business model understands that, when you place an order, we'll actually make money on that, and it'll take care of our team from there. But yeah, don't be afraid to come to us and approach us if you have something that's Say it again. That was awesome. What was the shape that you mentioned? A
Dodecahedron.
dodecahedron. Yeah. So if you have a dodecahedron, come see Arka. We'll take care of it.
Okay. And it's great to hear that you are using FSC certified materials. What about
For paper
for paper? Yeah,
specifically.
that's where I was going next.
Yeah.
What about things like plastic and cellophane
Mhm.
wraps and things like popcorn inserts and that? What kind of materials are you using there? Because there's obviously a big movement away from plastic now. Is that something that
Sure.
you
Sure.
deal with at all? I mean, or is that something that's done in the warehouse,
Absolutely.
or how does
No,
that
no, no.
work
Yeah.
out?
Totally. So when it comes to wrapping and protection, we stay away from plastic entirely. A honeycomb paper mailer or a honeycomb wrap. This is all paper. These are all paper products. Excuse me. Corrugated inserts for protection. Big believers in that. It also helps if you ship through Amazon FBA, and some other fulfillment companies do this as well. They'll charge you. Like if you have a glass product,
Hmm.
it needs to be wrapped and protected. Period. They're not going to ship that. That is extra material and extra labor costs. You're always going to get dinged. We did a certification with Amazon 2 years ago to be considered like one of their preferred vendors for Amazon FBA, where we did a PFP, FFP, and SIOC certification. That's prep-free packaging, frustration-free packaging, and SIOC ships in its own container. So if you have a product, let's say like a mug, it's strangely enough, we're all buying mugs. It's like one of the most popular products that breaks. You could put that inside of this corrugated insert tray, which goes directly in the box. No need for additional inner wrapping or outer packaging. It ships in its own container, like the label states. So that's we're biggest fans of that. Now to move on to, let's say, a poly mailer. Sure, we'll still provide poly mailers. Not everybody can afford to go eco-friendly, and that's okay. I don't want to discourage people from saying I need to have, a thick wallet out the gate to be able to pay for some sort of like bioplastic, because we do offer that as well. But we've recognized that it's something that more mature companies want to be able to approach a bit more easily when they've gone a little bit further along. They've had product market fit. Don't be ashamed. Anyone listening out there, and if you don't want to do polymailer, go to USPS if you're living in the States. You get packaging for free. Like it's literally just the cost of a label. Do that. It's fine. Buy stickers from us if you want and have like your logo on there or like branded tape. We can provide that as well. But you don't need to go straight to branded packaging. So if you want to somehow skip the cheaper poly mailers from the beginning, if you want to leapfrog that, maybe just start with free packaging from the post office. But once you do get there, and if you can't afford it, we do have bioplastics. We do have compostable material. But if I'm going to be completely honest, my favorite is actually plastic, but in the form of 100% PCR. So post-consumer recycled material, meaning that plastic is at the end of its life cycle. It has to go. It has to go to landfill at the end of the day. It's going there no matter what. These are getting produced and they're going there because every single plastic item that it was tied to, water bottles, other polymailers, whatever, have been broken down and created into these PCR mailers. They're asking to be used one last time before they get sent to the grave. That's a bit of a hot take. Some people are going to say that's not as, cute, kitschy, or as fashionable as compostable mailers. But if you have a compostable mailer, you have the responsibility to make sure that it gets composted. Do you think your end user is going to do that? Are they all going to do that? Probably not.
Hmm.
A majority don't, regardless of what soapbox they sit on talking about sustainability efforts and the desire to purchase eco-friendly. PCR mailer is eco-friendly in the sense that it's done. It needs to go. It is officially trash. So use it one last time. I'm a big advocate of that. They're also reasonably priced as well. But at the end of the day, we give options. It's a capitalist market. If you want plastic mailer, if you want a honeycomb craft mailer, which I actually really like, if you want compostable bioplastic, we've got that too. We also have PCR, and don't sleep on PCR if you're listening to this.
Okay. And you mentioned, ordering 500 or 5,000 or 50,000. What kind of size can you scale to?
I mean, look, we have some 3PLs that have like 50 locations, some 3PLs by way of WMS that have 150 locations. Scale's massive. It's really untapped. It doesn't matter. Like it really doesn't matter. I think the more difficult question for a lot of manufacturers is, what can you scale down to? Like, what's your minimum order quantity? That's always the gate that some providers have, where they're like, sorry, you need to order 25,000 of this thing. That can be a problem. That can be a problem, especially when you're considering that over 90% of ecom is doing less than 5 million a year. 70% is doing less than 1 million a year. Like the ecom world is not Amazon. It's every other mom and pop online store, whether they're on Shopify or like an Etsy seller. Like that's ecom, realistically speaking. So what they want to do is to be able to say, can I get 25 fully branded boxes? And you can through us. You can actually get one through us if you wanted to. So I would emphasize the flexibility that we have for like low minimum order quantities versus higher, because higher, anyone can do higher. Everyone wants to do higher. Manufacturers are just jumping at the opportunity to take a big order. They will ignore you if you have a small order, though. So we won't ignore you. Okay. So feel free to reach out.
And you mentioned branded as well. So is it possible to have my own branding on these boxes?
Absolutely. You can get one fully branded. It goes back to what I was saying about samples. You can get them for $20 and you get a full refund when you order 10. And I hope you do, not just because, like we'll give you your money back. I hope you do, because that means you're going to grow with us and we can grow with you. Great.
Cool. And where to next for you guys? What do you see as, where's the market going for these kind of things?
I mean, we've got the suite of packaging options that we're providing. I think our biggest march right now is towards the 3PLs and the warehouses, because we're just going further upstream, right? You have the direct to consumer merchants that can come to us directly and purchase the packaging. As they scale, that typically goes to a 3PL, and the 3PL is getting their information from the WMS. So the 3PL and WMS partnerships are going to be big because they're one-to-many plays, and if you can change their habits, they're going to pass on those habits to the merchant. Whereas if you're always focusing on the merchant, and maybe I'm giving away trade secrets here, but if you're focusing just on the merchant, they're not alone. Like, unless they're fulfilling in their warehouse, they don't have that freedom. Some of the 3PLs they work with won't accept branded packaging. Some of the 3PLs they work with won't accept some sort of like protection. They'll say, we need to charge you for this. So if we can implement best practices on a warehouse level, everything will be cheaper. Like, everything will be less expensive because we've removed the inefficiency.
Okay. Do you have any customer success stories you can point to?
Sure. So one of the companies that we're working with right now is a company called Printful. They do on-demand apparel, on-demand products, and they've moved towards 100% PCR in their warehouses. And we've helped enable that starting in their, I'm mispronouncing this, Mississauga location in Canada. But they're starting in Canada and they're moving towards all their other facilities to be 100% PCR. And I love that they've been able to avoid the noise when it comes to compostable or some other fashionable material. They understand, like, they're running it real. And I'm not trying to put down people who do purchase compostable at the end of the day. I'm just trying to applaud people who stay away from the noise. They do their research and they understand that this is the best solution. So for them, they're moving towards sustainability. We have folks like ShipBob that are working towards carbon neutral warehouses, which is awesome. I love seeing people doing not just carbon offset, because that's a whole other ballgame in itself, but understanding the benefits of just like lowering your carbon footprint. Yes, it's fashionable, but this is one of those use cases, I think, that being fashionable is actually kind of cool. And it's actually doing some good because it's actually driven by money, which is fine. Yeah. It shouldn't be pejorative just because it's money focused. It's all directionally correct. It's for the betterment of the environment. Cool. Great. And it's also getting you more customers. Like, that's a win-win. So I'm excited to see that. Especially when previously companies like Printful were just using plastic, virgin plastic, maybe sometimes recycled plastic, but to go to PCR, that's awesome. Not just for their bags, but for their boxes too. Like, it's the boxes are at the end of their lifeline as well. And if they're craft, they can actually be compostable too. So that's actually pretty awesome. I'm the biggest advocate of paper. It's the oldest material out there. It's not made of like cornstarch or some sort of like bio innovation. It's paper, and paper's great. It's still one of the most eco-friendly protective materials. There's flexibility around customization. You can brand it, you can recycle it, you can compost it. It can biodegrade in some cases if it's craft unbleached. And so the versatility there is just as unique as it always was. I think there's just been a lot of distraction through, the funding of other materials that have dissuaded people from just using the original material. Just use paper. Great.
Sure. We're coming towards the end of the podcast now, Phillip. Is there any question I haven't asked that you wish I had, or any aspect of this we haven't touched on that you think it's important for people to think about?
Just remember that, and I say this pretty much every opportunity I can, just remember that this is a process, one. So like iterate, come sample with us. Like I want to invite everyone here to sample with us. Even if you go in another direction and use another provider, just sample with us. Like we like it because we get to learn about your business and what you're working on and how we can be better providers of a service that includes making sure that your product, your baby ends up in the hands of a happy customer. And we were some part of that. That's freaking awesome. Like I do get excited about that. We're not, everyone here is not crazy about like paper and plastic. We're crazy about other businesses. Like we're working with, as a B2B, we're working with other business owners. That's fun because we're business owners. As I'm sure it's part of the reason why you enjoy what you do, Tom. Like you're talking to business owners and you get to hear their stories, and we like hearing their stories. But iterate, that's probably one of the biggest ones. And if you have the opportunity to sample, do it. Take your time if you can. Start early. We have a lot of folks that introduce themselves, and they kind of they procrastinate. Like don't procrastinate. They procrastinate, and then they come to us, and it's an emergency, and they need something right away. Don't do that. So just reminding everyone, don't do that. Sometimes you can't control it. I understand. Like things come up. You got to do what you got to do, and we will support you. But if you have the time, sample. Like enjoy. Enjoy the process. Is all I can say there for sure.
Cool.
Oh, and one last thing. Packaging, especially branded packaging. If you're listening to this, I have to triple underline this. It's a marketing spend, guys. Branded packaging configuration, meaning how they're going through the journey of layering, of opening up the package and getting your product. You can call it the unboxing experience. All of that is a marketing spend. They're going to talk about you, they're going to review you, and they're going to share the experience on socials as a result of that marketing spend or lack thereof that you invested or didn't invest in your packaging. It is the one thing that you send to your customer that has a 100% open rate. Hopefully, if someone didn't seal it from the porch. And by the way, quick side comment: sometimes people get concerned about branded packaging getting stolen because it's so visible on the porch. Just do inside branded. You can just leave the outside blank and brand the inside.
Sure.
Just by the way, quick side comment. But guys, it's a marketing spend, so invest in it. It is your billboard. If they're not stepping into a store, you're bringing the store to them. So spend on it. Your average user is spending 11% of the product cost on packaging cost. Actually, excuse me, product price on packaging cost. Because you might make something, no offense to those of you that source overseas, for something that costs 5 cents. That would mean you're spending a penny on boxes. That's not what I'm saying. If you're sending it for like $30, you should be spending like, $2 to $4 your package, which might sound crazy, but just watch what happens. We're coming up on peak season. I'm not sure, Tom, when this is going to get released, but like Black Friday, Cyber Monday is around the corner. At least pilot the investment in this marketing spend for the holidays, see what happens, and allow that to drive the decision-making that you have around investing in packaging for next year. But pilot it and experiment this holiday season. See that it doesn't pay back in dividends. I dare you.
Yeah.
So if you're listening, I dare you to spend on this. See what happens. I promise everyone's going to be happier.
To your point, and I'm going to sound like a ridiculous Apple fanboy here, but I was at an event not so long ago where people were discussing design, and the speaker said, okay, everybody raise your hands if you bought an Apple device. 3/4 in the hands went up in the room. And he said, now keep your hands up if you still have the original package that device came in. And almost all the hands stayed up. And it's because the boxes the packaging that Apple ships their devices in, they're phenomenally engineered. They're beautiful, and they're incredibly sustainable. There's minimal plastic, and they said recently they're getting rid of all plastic, but still minimum plastic, all paper. They, you struggle to open them in a good way because they're so tight.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think Apple are making your point for you. So
Good. I'm glad. Thank you, Apple. Appreciate it.
okay, Phillip, that's been fascinating. If people would like to know more about yourself or any of the things we talked about in the podcast today, where would you have me direct them? Apple.com.
Yeah, apple.com. Go to apple.com and it'll spell it all out for you. No, it'll be arka.com. So arka.com. And, we have a live chat. We have support at arka.com. If you want to chat with me, founder to founder, hit me up on LinkedIn. I'm sure my name is going to come up after this, Phillip Akhzar. But check out the site. See if there's something you like. And ask us a question if there's something that you don't see that you need. We'll figure it out together, and we'll make a recommendation to a partner if it's something we can't help you with. We just want to see all succeed. We pride ourselves in being thought leaders in this space, an authority on this space, and the experts. So if we can help you out, we're happy to pay it forward because it'll all come back to us. It's happened before. It'll continue happening. Highly recommend you do that.
Fantastic.
And thanks for having me, Tom.
Fantastic. Phillip, thanks a million for coming on the podcast today.
Awesome. Thank you.